and tireless effort to rise to the occasion of public accountability as it relates to our electricity generation performance and our energy security. And we are always glad to have you here as our very key stakeholder and role player in this crucial exercise. So with that, colleagues, we will go straight into the business of the day and invite Minister Kgosientsho Ramakgopa to the podium, who will kick us off on today's briefing, which will be followed by us opening the floor to questions from yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tsakani, and good morning to members of the media, and once more thank you for making it possible for us to communicate with the public back at home, and also to acknowledge the leadership of Eskom that has joined me for this media briefing. I really want to start by again just conveying my sincere apology to the rest of the country for the gross inconvenience caused by load shedding. I have made the point previously that we should never be accustomed to load shedding. It's an anomaly, and it's something that we are working very hard to ensure that we are able to liquidate both as Eskom and as a country, because it's going to stunt the potential for growth in the country. Is going to undermine the key aspects of the growth story that the President had articulated during the occasion of the State of the Nation address. And of course, it's got huge implications in relation to, as I say, economic performance, and also the degree to which we are able to replenish the National Revenue Fund and be able to finance a number of initiatives, broadening the floor of the social wage, ensuring that we are able to accelerate the infrastructure development in the country, because if the economy is not growing, you are unlikely going to broaden the revenue streams of the country. So I really want to say that exceptionally disappointed about the events that have happened. Of course, I come to you in the past 30 days or so, the 1st of February, we came in on the back of, again, some failures at Letabo and Matimba, and we had to say that we're going to initiate stages of load shedding, and then we came back again around the 20th, 22nd of February again, to say on the back of the events that happened at Majuba and Camden, we had to initiate load shedding. And we are coming back to you almost a fortnight later to convey again the kind of progress we are making in addressing the most recent setback. So if you were to ask me, this is one press conference I really don't want to have, because we are explaining why there's load shedding. As I said before, there shouldn't be load shedding in the first instance. We really want to have a conversation around how we are confident about our ability to ensure that we eliminate load shedding once and for all. But we do have an obligation, like we have said before, for us to be transparent in the manner in which we are communicating the state of the grid. We are able to ensure that there's elevated levels of accountability from the highest echelons, and of course it starts with me as a Minister of Energy and Electricity. I want to make the general observations, and then we'll then share with you where we at, because when Eskom issued the power alert, it did make the point that on account of the challenges we have had at Kubek unit number 2, the challenges that we have had in relation to the 2 units at Kgosientsho, unfortunately we had to initiate load shedding because we needed to protect and replenish our reserves. So we'll give you an account of where we are in megawatt terms. What are those the power stations or the units that have gone out? How far are we in relation to our own commitment and the level of ambition that we have set ourselves during this window? We have made the point that we are confident that come Monday we should be in a position to get out of this current bout of load shedding. So we'll give you an account of where we at. and also confirm that indeed we are still on that track. I think at an aggregate level, I want to make the following point, is that although we are still continue to move in the right direction, if you had to do a longitudinal study where we started, an analysis rather, where we started in 2023 at the peak of load shedding, the intensity of planned maintenance on the back of the support that we have received from National Treasury, the trend line, the aggregate trend line is still going in the right direction. But I think the three episodes that we have had, the 1st of February, the 22nd of February, and now this 5th, 6th of March, have not helped to ensure that we remain on that course. So it's a significant setback, and that setback is immense. It's immense because it erodes the public confidence in our ability to finally resolve load shedding. It is immense because it disrupts the lives of ordinary people. It is immense because it also erodes, if you like, market confidence on our ability to ensure that we resolve load shedding. Although we do characterize it as a setback, and you will see that the degree to which we are able to go into that load shedding and come back quicker, I think just confirms the fact that we're getting this right, we are moving in the right direction. But what it does is that on aggregate terms from the unplanned capacity loss factor, is that during this period, I think the past 3 weeks or so, we have seen that we have battled to remain below 14,000 megawatts. And in fact, during that period of stage 6 load shedding, we are going even much closer to 17,000 megawatts, which is what we had experienced during the intensity of load shedding. Of course, we are able to bring the units quicker. Of course, there's planned maintenance that has been aggressive. As we go into the winter period, it's going to taper down. We'll announce the winter outlook, I think, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, so it's a separate conversation. And they will give you the confidence that we have in relation to us navigating ourselves through a difficult period of winter, because at that time, we'll be having additional generation capacity coming from Kusile unit number 6, additional generating capacity coming from Medupi unit number 4. But what this period, this window for the past 4 weeks suggests that if we are complacent, we are likely going to regress to the levels that we have seen during the intensity of load shedding. And it is our intention to ensure that we don't even get to those levels. If you look at our summer outlook, very confident about the projections, and of course the past 4 weeks have not kept up to the promise that we have made. So we're the first one to acknowledge that we have not necessarily kept up to the promise that we have made to the country, and hence we had to initiate load shedding. And I want to say to the country that on account of these occurrences, these setbacks, what it has done is to ensure that it catalyzes an even deeper conversation amongst us as the leadership of a government in the form of the minister, the leadership of the board led by Dr. Mteto, and the management led by the Group CEO, Mr. Marokane, on what are those areas where we think that we have regressed. So clearly, the fact that we are experiencing load shedding, there are areas that we have identified ourselves where we have regressed, and I'm sure at the right time, the Group CEO will make those interventions and will make them public on the kind of actions we are taking to ensure that there is no regression, and if anything, we maintain the trend line, the positive trend line that we have built over a period of time. Because there's so many setbacks that we can accommodate. This is a third setback in a period of about 30 days, totally unacceptable. Unacceptable because we're on a good run. Like I said, we at the peak of this run, we're experiencing unplanned capacity loss factor of about 8,500 megawatts. In fact, oscillating between 8,500 and 11,000 megawatts. And now we are breaching the 14,000 megawatts. So it's an illustration of something that has gone wrong. And ourselves as a collective have begun to identify that, but it requires a much more robust and honest conversation amongst ourselves as a leadership core to ensure that that which has been working, we maintain it. Areas that requires improvement, we are able to improve on. Where we have regressed, we need to ensure that we decisively deal with those areas so that it doesn't undermine, if you like, our overall quest to ensure that finally we are able to end load shedding. And of course, as communicated before, we are still on the communication, the alert that Eskom has issued to say that by Monday we are getting out of this recent bout of load shedding. But really to give you confidence on where we at, the megawatts, and how we are performing against the promise of retaining those units, I'm going to defer to Mr. Marokan, who's going to take us through a bit more detail on some of the progress that we've made in relation to retaining this megawatts. So then.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Just to reiterate that the space that we are in is one that we don't like ourselves. We have undertaken to the country that when we stay below 13,000 megawatts of unplanned capacity losses, we should have a comfortable summer. When we met over the last 2 weeks, we indicated that we're continuing and in the middle of our intense maintenance execution. I can indicate that we are still on that path. We'll see that path starting to taper as we go into the end of March and April, as we get back to the winter period. The one issue that, of course, now requires our urgent attention is the clinical finish in the execution of the maintenance, in a sense that as we return units back from maintenance, they need to essentially come in and stay online. What we have seen in the last week, which is essentially trying to explain what transpired and led to the events of yesterday, is that whilst we have done the maintenance, a number of units slipped in terms of their due dates for returning from outages. And we saw slippages in the order of about 1,500 megawatts that are adding to the unavailability, unplanned availability. And when that happens, and you have a combination of big units that have challenges, Kubek is one of those that's been off for a week now. And you had a suboptimal coaling activities due to the intense weather in the vicinity of Kgosientsho, as we saw Thursday evening into Friday. You have no room to respond. It is on the back of this that our attention is really shifting towards getting back the tight discipline of executing our maintenance and getting the return and reliability of the units from maintenance window to be such that we do not have this massive slippages adding pain to us. We've seen the unplanned capability loss factor rising from around 15,000 in the middle of the week, and yesterday running all the way to 18,000. This is what triggered the stage 3 load shedding in the middle of yesterday. What have we done since then? Since then, we've returned 3,200 megawatts by this morning. So quite a number of units came back, including those 2 Kgosientsho units were back by last night at 10 p.m. And this morning, further units came through to give us that reduction in the unplanned losses. We're now sitting at about 4,500. Tomorrow we expect some 750 megawatts of capacity to come back, and the remaining 2,800 by Monday morning. This will include the return on Kubek Unit 2 that's been on breakdown since last week Sunday for one reason, and subsequent to the resolution of that reason, we have encountered 2 separate challenges in the run-up to it, which are now getting attention. The last one getting attention as we speak, and we should be having that unit planned for return on Monday morning. Going forward, as I said, the intensity of maintenance tapers towards end of March into April. We should have no associated unavailability due to slippages, so we should be eradicating a lot of those slippages and having much more availability of our fleet. And this will require some sharpening of our execution capabilities and shaping up and supporting our management teams at the various sites a little bit more to navigate the complexities that we are dealing with at the moment. Where we headed to, our plan is to finish the maintenance as outlined earlier, to get value out of it, with ensuring that slippages do not occur and the plants are available. The second part, our focus remains on bringing new capacity. We have indicated that Kusile Unit 6 is going through its last stages of commissioning, and we expect it to be synchronized to the grid by the middle of March, around the 18th. And we should, at the end of March and April, have the Medupi Unit 4 also synchronized. It is the combination of this maintained units or units coming out of maintenance and the new capacity that will essentially form the backbone of our entry into the winter period and the winter period plan, which we'll announce at the end of March once we've gone through this window. As indicated, our focus this weekend is to recover reserves. We had to rely on our reserves this past week as the unplanned losses were slightly higher. We've had to rely on our reserves, and they've carried us quite well. As we speak, the dams levels are improving, and we should be there more or less by tonight, early hours of the morning with the dams. We have switched off the diesel generators in Cape Town, in Ankerlech in particular, to allow the recovery of the fuel tanks in that space. And tomorrow morning we should be entering what we regard as safer zones and in the build-up for the evening. So we'll assess the situation again tonight on how we're progressing. The key part is to keep the units that are running online and continue with the management of our reserves in preparation for the new week. Chair, Minister, I'll stop here, and perhaps we may go into deeper questions after this presentation for the specifics. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon to the viewers. Both the Minister and Dan have spent quite a lot of time to help us to understand where we are with regards to this current incident. And also the Minister reflected on some of the past incidents and with also the view of saying we seem to be moving in the wrong direction. This is not something that is in line with where we want to be. So what I'm going to focus on is now, as the board, we have a responsibility. We've got a responsibility of making sure that this entity, Eskom, is an entity that delivers on its both commercial and social mandates. But where we are right now, we have, in this current year, failed 3 times. You know, we have called and stood up here, have to face the nation, having to say that we're experiencing load shedding. This is clearly something that is not acceptable, and this is something that we, as the board, also feel this is not acceptable. And we have made the decision that things are not going to be business as usual within Eskom going forward. If you may, who can all of us take a step back and look at when we first joined this board in 2022, we were experiencing a crisis. And at that time, as a board, we made a decision that we are going to act differently. We are going to be an engaged board. We are going to engage and work alongside with management and help management to be able to address some of the challenges that we were facing at the time. But about a year ago, we created the space Naturally, we need to, because our role as the board can never be about running the operation. It has to be us providing the necessary support to the management, and which we did. But right now, I think we do not want to see a situation where we go back to where we were in 2022. It is not something that we want to see, and it's not something that is going to happen. We know what got us to be where we were when we had 8 months of no load shedding. It was at the back of discipline. It was at the back of making sure that we do the right things right all the time. That was very important to do that. We created and put together some support structures that helped management and together with the employees to execute on the maintenance that was done, which we did in 2023. We put together a support structure as in an independent service provider that was giving management the necessary support and was also giving to the board early warnings around when things were not going right, so that we can support management in the right way. I think we need to go back to that kind of structure going forward to make sure that we really instill the culture of accountability. We instill the culture of making sure that when we say we do things, we do exactly those things. So the board going forward will be working alongside with management and helping us to get back to what we have been used to, what we know that this team is capable of doing. You may have seen in us in the past being the big cheerleaders of management, and we needed to. Many times people were asking the question, why should you even be, celebrating or congratulating people, a fish for swimming? We were very strong with the view and the belief that we have to continue to support and recognize people when they are doing the right things, and we did that. But we also are not confused about our other responsibility as the board, that responsibility of making sure that we provide the oversight. We make sure that we are holding people accountable. It is really at this time now that we have to be stepping up even more and making sure that we get back to what we know that this leadership team is capable of. And so that is what we're going to be doing. We've got a committee of the board called the Business Operation Performance Committee, led largely by engineers, and also we've got a number of accountants in that committee. It is the committee that is going to be helping us to look at all of these incidences and start to look at the patterns and get to the root of what are the systemic issues. What are the systemic issues that we are facing right now? And those systemic issues will typically be in the areas of process, of systems, and most importantly, around people. And once we've identified those, and then we have to put intervention in those areas to make sure that we eliminate those systemic issues. So we have asked this committee of the board to do exactly that, to work with the leadership team to make sure that these are brought to the surface as quickly as possible, so that we can, as the team, together with, of course, the shareholder, support management to eliminate whatever issues that they are currently facing. So with that, we're looking forward to making sure that by Monday, we said Monday at 5 o'clock, we would like to lift load shedding. We'd like to make sure that that gets done. But beyond that, we have a job to do, and that job is to help support management to address the systemic issues that seem to have come back. So with that, then, I'm going to ask Tsakane to come back. Thank you.
very much to the Minister, to Eskom's Board Chairperson, and to Mr. Dan Morokane, Eskom's GCE. Colleagues, as indicated in the intro, that this briefing is really part of a continued and a tireless effort to rise to the occasion of public accountability in relation to our electricity generation performance and ultimately South Africa's attainment of energy security. So the panel, as we have it, is really prepared to subject themselves to questions from yourselves. And we've now come to that part. And by show of hands, can you please raise your hands if you've got any questions to the panel? And then I would like to believe that we also have participants who are following this briefing online, and Takalani will take us through those questions if there are any. So we can commence. Are there any hands in the room? Okay, there's one from, okay, 1, 2. Any other? So in that order, we'll start with this one. Thanks.
Thank you, it's Linda Lomasigana from ENCA. I've addressed some clarity on the areas where you have regressed. What are those areas actually? And the Minister stated that this is the third setback in 30 days, elaborating that of course it's unacceptable. So where exactly is this accountability that you keep stressing? Who is not doing their job here? Also, I think a concern for South Africans is how load shedding is kind of just brought about at a drop of a hat. So is there no preemptive measure that Eskom has in terms of seeing that, okay, it seems we're heading into the direction we're about to have load shedding? For example, yesterday, just out of the blue, in the middle of the day, we're given a statement that there's load shedding. And then just lastly, sorry, the stages of load shedding have also been quite high. Is there a reason you could give for that, for example? And then lastly, the chair said that things won't be business as usual. Can he elaborate what does that actually mean practically? Thank you.
Thank you, Slindalo. We'll go to Katla.
Good afternoon, Minister. Good afternoon, Eskom Executive and the Board. Katla Olhori here from the SABC. I had a couple of questions, but the first one would be around what the Chair said on the Business Operation Performance Committee. Is this a new committee that you've set up to more or less attend to these setbacks that we've realized in recent days? Is this a committee that we'll see starting to report also to the board to kind of mitigate in terms of where we find ourselves now? The other one would be on Quebec being taken offline. We understand that the reason why we find ourselves here is because certain units had to be taken offline there by Quebec. Could this be somewhat of a norm that we see going forward, where some of these units are taken offline, and can it be better handled in terms of just trying to caution the public around what is looming, as compared to us finding ourselves through a statement that we are in a couple of hours going to experience load shedding? Can there be a better way of maybe, more or less preempting or foreseeing some of these things and cautioning the public to prepare themselves, especially the business community that have been really abetted by what is happening? Also, the other one would be on what we saw just coming out of Kgosientsho. What happened there, we hear, was blamed on the adverse weather conditions that affected what is happening there. The weather conditions are becoming adverse, and the climate change is becoming a reality. What is it that Eskom is working on that could help, more or less caution, or more or less just take advantage of where we find ourselves, but protect the infrastructure that we hear has been ailing over time? So as we see these adverse weather conditions playing out, is there a plan from Eskom to kind of shield some of these facilities from being affected by what is happening here? The last one would be on the upcoming budget. We know that the Finance Minister is going to be presenting a revised budget What is it that Eskom would be expecting to hear from the minister, and what would be presented by the minister help in your operations in terms of making sure that load shedding becomes a thing of the past? Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the questions. Takalani, do we have questions online? Can you take us through those if there are any?
We do have questions online. I'll be taking you through them just now. The first one is from Nick Wilson from News 24. Why was Unit 2 shut down again on Wednesday after it was initially brought back? Does Eskom think the unit is unreliable? And how could this impact the long-term renovation or plans of renewal for the nuclear license for Eskom? I understand that Unit 1 has been renewed, but when will the decision for Unit 2 to be renewed be made? Will that happen in November this year? Other questions are from Chris Yelland. He has 4 questions for the Minister. Please, may Eskom advise in more detail the reasons for the tripping of Gulberg Unit 2 on Sunday and again on Thursday last week. Eskom data shows that planned maintenance, PCLF, is consistently lower for the first 9 weeks of 2025 compared to the same period last year. This does not seem to align with the Minister's message that Eskom has increased aggressive levels of maintenance. Please, may the Minister and Eskom comment on this. May Eskom advise on the latest update. When will Unit 4 be delivering full power to the grid? The last question is from Terence Creamer at Engineering News. There is a distinct change in tone from both the shareholder, minister, and the board chair regarding the performance of the executive. What must be done to restore trust, and should the public expect specific consequence management in light of the statements made today? Those are all the questions we have so far.
Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you to all the questions that have come in from the room. I think we'll start with Eskom, who will be followed by the Minister in response. Thanks.
Let me deal with the questions that came from Silindela, the ones that I'll handle, and I'll leave the rest to the board chair and the minister. The question relating to the areas that have regressed, in my presentation I alluded to the fact that whilst we had planned for high levels of maintenance, PCLF, what we've seen is that when these units are meant to come back, we experience slippages, and that translates to unplanned or translates to your UCLF immediately. And that level in the last week, and if you go back maybe one more week, ranged in between 1,000 and 1,000 megawatts. That shows a drop in discipline in terms of execution effectiveness of the maintenance, and is a matter that we are refocusing on ensuring that we deliver as per plan. It talks to the level of readiness when you execute, before you execute, but also the discipline in making sure that the quality of work is up to speed. It's something we've done before, it's something that we now need to pay attention to. And our focus on supporting the management team with additional technical skills in sites that are affected by this is precisely to close up on that gap. So we are rejigging, we'll rejig the support to ensure that we get the effectiveness that we anticipate in that area. As to the amount of time that's given before load shedding is initiated in terms of the warning, we do give indications of the systems being tight every of the Friday afternoons. We particularly talk about the levels of reserves that we have and the units that we expect to come back. We anticipate the situations every 24 hours if they move to an unacceptable level, and we try to give a heads up as early as possible. Yesterday's conversations in place point to that area. It was a situation that really transpired around 10 in the morning, and just after 1 o'clock we were able to have fully assessed the implications for the evening peak and came out with the update that we have. I think the key message that I would like to re-emphasize at this point in time, like we have done before, is that as we go through this maintenance periods, we remain vulnerable. We remain vulnerable because of the slippages from the outage work. We remain vulnerable with the reliability of the plants that we have. And until we have the capacity that we're working on bringing on board, we will not have and we still remain without the great margins that we anticipate. Is there room for us to probably improve in terms of early warnings, Silindela? Let's take this up back as a team and look at one other mechanisms that we can refine a weak outlook in terms of helping with the planning from the business operations perspective. What are we doing in terms of the climate resilience from a business perspective? I think in all fairness, this is the 1 year where, if you recall, we had most intense rains in the Gauteng areas and in Mpumalanga. In the Vaal, very, very heavy rains that affected our mining operations there. You did not hear us say that we've had to completely shut down because of the outages occasioned by the weather. And that's because we continuously improve on our continuity plans, from adjusting our operational procedures and anticipating a bit more. But as we will all accept, the extent of the weather pattern variations continues to surpass even the planning levels that we have. The fact that we could recover Kusile yesterday in a short space that we did from its outage at 10 o'clock in the morning, and the first unit coming back just before the evening peak, and the second one just before 10 p.m. is also testimony to the effectiveness of some of the operational plans that we have anticipated and we have brought into play. There will always be some disruption. The whole idea is to minimize that, to contain it in the first instance, otherwise minimize it to as little as possible at time. So we do look after adjusting our ways of working to respond to climate change. And there are other examples of how we have managed to maintain our systems even in areas where we had experienced intense snow, if you recall, in the last year. But this is something that has to be an ongoing focus, as we can never be foolproof from it. The Quebec unit coming offline, is this going to be a norm? No, none of our units must be offline. They must only be offline at plant maintenance time. They must run in between those periods. What we had at Quebec was a trip, and Becky will explain it perhaps a bit more. It was a trip that we experienced last week Sunday, and coming out of that trip, we experienced two other separate issues that we needed to attend to, given that the plant had been brought to a standstill and may have brought in some changes and transients in that case. What are we expecting from the budget? You'll recall that Eskom is going through the debt relief program that the government announced 2 years ago relating to the 254 billion rands of reducing our debt. The allocations are done on an annual basis. Our expectation is to hear from the minister how that will be handled for the remaining period of the 3-year window, and we all eagerly anticipate clarity around the resolution of the debt. As the minister indicated earlier on, the resolution of the debt has been quite central in enabling the business to implement support for its operations, and this very recovery of the generation performance and investment in our fleet has been on the back of the support that came from government in that particular format. We expect to have certainty and finalize it, and we need to show the value in terms of the performance of the business going forth. Chris asked why the PCLF is consistently lower than we indicate with regards to intense maintenance. Yes, as soon as we get out of PCF and the units are on sleep, that moves from PCLF and adds up to the UCLF. So the slab that you've been seeing on the UCLF increasing is as a result of PCLF that has essentially not come back into operation. That's what we need to nip in the bud to ensure that you don't sit with what looks like a low PCLF, but yet your UCLF is up, simply because the units have not come back into operation. There's a number of these units that have just gone on for 2 or 3 days or a week at a time, and that's what our attention is turning to from a discipline execution perspective. Becky will talk to you around some of the schedules as we go through, and then we'll leave the rest of the questions through to the Minister and the Chair.
Okay, thank you, GCE. Good morning, Minister and the Chair, and also the public. Yeah, I think the issues of the schedules at Kusile, that maybe just touch on that one. For Unit 6, it is a new unit. We're finalizing the work. We should be starting the test from Monday for about 5 days. So obviously, one of the reasons we do this test is also to prove that the machines are correct to go onto the grid. When they do not go as well, because it's also wrong to put the machine just for the sake of it. So we want to make sure that our team do the right things. And I also want to concur with both the Minister and the Chair that they have got the right not to be happy with the current situation. And as a team, we're working very hard to restore that confidence into the public. So our teams are fully on the ground to deal with that. There was also a question about Quebec in terms of how is this going to affect the license. Let me also say that in terms of the nuclear safety, there is no issue at Quebec currently. And that is our first prize in terms of how we run this nuclear facility. That whatever happens, we will make sure that we don't compromise on the nuclear safety. The incident that we are having now is more the defects that we had on Wednesday, where we had to take Unit 2, unfortunately, down. But just from the upgrade of these 2 units, we have seen a tremendous performance, even on Unit 2, doing exceptionally well, giving us even additional megawatts. So, save for that, we are still quite confident with the team that is driving that we will drive to get this unit as soon as possible by the end of this weekend. The Medupi Unit 4, we are also now at the critical stages of commissioning. So there's a lot of issues, obviously, when you pick up on the new units. So we are still confident that we should start making it in by the end of the month, first week of April. That will also give us some reprieve. The last point I want to touch on, when it comes to the current outages, hence also sometimes the slippages, we are also doing major refurbishment, major upgrades, sometimes putting in newer plants on these things to deal with our emission problem. So those commissionings also take some time, but the teams, together with all our partners that we're working with, we are doing everything to ensure that the employees and also the public is safety in terms of our operation. So yeah, it is a bit of a tough times we are going through, but we are hopeful as well. We've seen the clearer weather as well today that will help us to also speed our recoveries, because this thunderstorm, as we have seen at Kusile this week, I mean, our courtyard are outside there, so it means when it happened, we need to withdraw the people as well for their own safety, and those create some delays which compound. But we will continue to build up our plans. We have been so far very successful with dealing with all the issues that was coming through, as the CEO was saying, but we need to continue to see how do we plan for summer period maybe differently going forward as well, because we've seen that the traditional high summer and the low reserve might not be an ideal approach as well. So maybe we need to spread our maintenance across all the seasons. Yeah. Thanks. Then I think I've covered most of the questions that we had.
So I'm going to cover, I think, 2 or 3 questions. One was business as usual. What do we mean by that? Then another question on the Business Operation Performance Committee. There was a question around that. And then Terence, a question around consequence management. Let me say up front that this board has got complete confidence in the leadership of Eskom, the leadership of Dan, and the leadership of Becky. We've got complete confidence. When we say that we are going to be changing things, it's not going to be business as usual. It means that we want to work alongside them, we want to support them. We may be doing things that ordinarily board should not be doing, be engaged a lot more. So that's what we mean. For example, when we joined this board, one of the things that we did way back then was to engage directly the power station general managers. We wanted to hear directly from them what the issues were. And gaining that insight helped us to come up with the plan, the generation recovery plan that we're talking about now. So it's the same now. The issues may have changed, we don't know, but we want to have that direct engagement. Of course, we're not bypassing anybody. Through the committee, having direct engagement with the relevant people to gain insights, because that's the reason why you had board members that have got this expertise to provide the necessary understanding, bring their experience into the equation to help us to all address whatever problems that we are facing. So that's the business. When we say that it's not going to be business as usual, it means exactly that. It also means that there are sometimes a lot of explanation around things. You can always come up with an explanation around things and rationalize. We're saying we're not just going to accept that. We're not just going to accept just because we've got an explanation, then we're comfortable. No, it's not going to be like that. So we're going to interrogate, we're going to question, we're going to challenge people. So that's what it means. It also means that when we have leaders or managers or operators, people have been appointed into those roles. They must do what they have been appointed to do. The leaders must lead, the managers must manage, the operators must operate. If a person is unable to do that, maybe we find a way to support them to be able to do their job, or maybe they're in the wrong job. So we need to have those conversations, and that is what we mean by making sure that it is not business as usual. Because at the end of the day, we know that what this entity is capable of. It's an entity that is capable. We've demonstrated for 8 months. We can continue to do that, but if people are complacent, we end up moving in the wrong direction. So that's what it means. It's not going to be business as usual. When it comes to the Business Operation Performance Committee, that committee, we were not just forming it now. It was established when this new board was appointed back in 2022. because it felt that we've got so many engineers who can provide, and also CAs who can provide the necessary support and guidance to management, to put together a committee that is able to do that. That committee was established then, and it's a committee that that continues to provide that technical support to management. And when we looked at the last 3 incidents as the board, we felt that it is the time now that committee, when we say that we are going to be engaged, it is through this committee. It's not like all of us are going to be going over and trying to be all over management. It is through this committee of the board that that will be engaged, and then it is the committee that will then come back to the shareholder and also to the board, and with recommendations on how best we can support the teams. But it has always been there. With regards to consequence management, this is something that we continue to do. It's something that we will, if people need to, if we need to have difficult conversation with people, that's what needs to happen. So that's why when we're saying that leaders must lead, managers must manage, it means that in situations where there needs to be consequences, they must be comfortable in having those difficult conversations, the leaders and the managers. Yeah. So with that, then I'm going to ask the Minister to come and address us.
No, thank you, ma'am. The one question I want to answer is the one that has been raised by Terence. You could pick up the change of tone. Yes, your observations are absolutely correct. So the first thing I want to do is to reaffirm my confidence and that of Cabinet in the leadership of the board led by Mr. Dr. Mteto, and also confirm and reaffirm our confidence we have on Mr. Marokwane, the group's CE, and also Mr. Bekin Numan. So these are the principal drivers, if you like, the protagonists who have been able to ensure that we are able to navigate through this exceptionally difficult waters. I made the point that at the height of load shedding, UCLF peaking at about 18,000 megawatts. As a result of their stewardship, technical astuteness, and also the kind of fiscal support received from National Treasury, the alignment and coordination with the shareholder. We've been able to bring that down. As I made the point earlier on, I think during our best performance, we brought it down to about 8,500 megawatts. And of course, we're oscillating between that number and about 11,000 megawatts. And it's thanks to the leadership of this trio. And then we also know, as I stand before you, that now it would appear that at least for the past 4 or 5 weeks, we're going back to those levels. The period of 2023, February and March, where the UCLF we have seen now, it was flirting with about 18,000 megawatts. So I think that's a source of exasperation. So first is disappointment, but also exasperation in that we know what the team can achieve and the team has achieved. So that much we know. It's not for discussion. So you can explain, at least our own internal conversation, that there are other non-technical issues that are at play, which will not be ventilated in the public domain. It's not appropriate to do that, I must emphasize. I mean, if you look at, you have to examine what got us into this space of the 4 weeks of turbulence, the turbulence in the increase in the unplanned capacity loss factor, the issues as Matimba and Letao. And then we have a second bite, Majuba and Camden. And then we come to Quebec, and then Kusile. I want to argue those are not issues of a technical nature, and it's conversation we're having internally. I don't think that is for public consumption. What matters for the public is that we are going to resolve those issues. So it requires an honest conversation. As the chair was making the point, we're the first ones to say, we're making progress, congratulate, let's keep at it, let's continue that we focus our eyes on the bouncing ball, and that bouncing ball is the ending of load shedding, ultimately attenuate over a period of time, and then ultimately we are able to liquidate it. So clearly there's been areas of failure, and those areas requires that we have an honest conversation. And again, I think as a minister, I have a duty and obligation, because ultimately I'm the one who must communicate to the country on what are these sets of interventions that we are taking. Like I said before, I'm an activist minister, technically sound, so I'm going to go to ground zero. And that does not undermine the leadership of management. But I need to have my own engagement, I was saying, with the team, with the staff. I mean, we have dropped the ball as a collective. Of course, Mr. Marokani and Mr. Numalo will drive that agenda. You are not encroaching, but we go to the ground in the same manner that we're able to generate a diagnostic report. Remember when we started the appointment, when I was appointed, used to go to the various power stations, have the conversation with managers, have the conversation with the staff, and be able to boost morale as we support the work that the management is doing from Megawatt Park to the various stations. Again, we have dropped the ball. So we are going back to those people that the 40,000 plus, just have an appreciation. Why is it that we are at this stage? Because I think we need to keep at the momentum that we have built. If anything, we need to ensure that there's a degree of acceleration, and that acceleration is will be measured in our ability to ensure that we stave off load shedding, and ultimately we are able to liquidate it. So yes, very difficult conversations. I was saying to the team, something must give. It's not possible that we have these many failures and then it's normal. No, it can't happen that way. But that's a management responsibility. But I have a duty. I will not sit back and watch. Something must give. So there are consequences. We're on this path, and then we can see where the problem went. I don't have to ventilate some of these findings, what happened, Kubek and the like. Nothing to do with the performance, reliability of that unit. Everything to do with how people conducted themselves. Consequences. Doesn't work that way. And again, I'll go to Letabo, I'll go to Matimba, I'll go to Kendal, I'm going. There has to be answers. I have a duty, we have a duty collectively to keep the lights on, to power the South African economy. It doesn't work that way. So when there are difficulties, we confront those difficulties with the same enthusiasm and vigor that we celebrate the fact that we have achieved this period, sustained period. Like I say, we are not here to celebrate the number of days we don't have load shedding. We celebrate the fact that load shedding will have ended. So we are not yet there. And the idea that we can be complacent and celebrate that, I think, is inconsistent and incompatible with what constitutes the end result. Of course, in the process of doing so, when we achieve this milestone, we recognize those milestones, 100 days, 200 days, 300 days, but ultimately, the biggest milestone, the biggest trophy is to liquidate load shedding. Yes, those conversations are happening. That's not for the public. What is for the public is that as we have committed, load shedding must, at least this bout, must go away. We have committed to Monday period. We must stick to the commitment we are making, and then internally we'll have those conversations, and not just conversations, but actions. That's how we are going to ensure that the state is able to respond in the most comprehensive and effective manner in ensuring that we are able to bolster the South African economy. We are on the right path. As the President has said on multiple occasions, we saw when he visited, had engagement with the leadership of Gauteng, the leadership of the Johannesburg, which is really the epicenter of economic development of the economy of this country, is that no, those days of the state just pulling back, president just being presidential, he dirties his hands to the extent that we need assistance. He'll make that determination. He's not encroaching. He's got a responsibility to lead, and he's able to illustrate that leadership. So we're taking cue from there in the same manner that we've been able to achieve the kind of progress we have made with the colleagues here, It's important that where there are missteps, that we are able to correct them. And where there has to be casualties, there will be casualties. There are things that are non-negotiable. We are at that stage. Casualties will be there in the quest to ensure that we are able to stabilize the grid, we are able to end load shedding. Like I said, exceptionally uncomfortable to come to the country. Every time explaining yourself, we apologize, load shedding, it will come after 3 days is going. And after 14 days, I stand before the public, essentially undermining, like I said, the quality of life of our people, major disruption, undermining business confidence, factories to be able to operate, because they just don't know that at which stage is it going to come, when is it going to come, the planning is not in place. We can't have an economy that operates on a stop-start basis as a result of load shedding. Like I said, very decisive action. That will happen. It's not me who will communicate it, it's the management that will do it. There are no holy cows who are going to address this. Because we know what we can achieve, we have achieved it over a period of 8 months. So it comes from that place. We know what we have achieved, and we know that it can be done. And we can see where the ball is being dropped, so that I can confirm that there will be those consequences. But that's for management and the board to make that determination. The shareholder also has a right, and that's why we'll be going to those power stations. We'll go Tuesday, then a break of the budget, we'll go Thursday, we'll go Friday. That engagement will happen. And I know when I engage with staff, they will tell me. Other things, so I don't place just sole reliance on the written reports. I think that conversation is important. You open a platform for that conversation. You democratize solution finding. Very important, because that's what also got us here. Our ability to mobilize, to energize the base, our ability to galvanize the base, that critical mass of the 40,000 people, they are the ones who are principally responsible for that period of 7 to 8 months. It is they who must continue to contribute. The leadership will make sure that the leadership is provided, but we take everyone on board and ensure that we get to understand what those issues are. But yes, we go to ground zero and understand what this situation is. Why is it that we are here? I have a sense, by the way, why we are here. It's not for public consumption, but I can see why we are here. And clearly we have dropped the ball. That I take accountability, and I've once more want to convey my most sincere apology at the disruption, at the failure of us to live up to the expectation that we have created. We know that we've got both the capacity and the faculties to resolve this question, this problem that is confronted. We are confronted with, and I'm confident we'll do that. But now we are going through very turbulent waters, adverse headwinds. I can tell you a significant number of these, nothing to do with technical issues. We know where the problem is, and we'll resolve that problem. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Minister, and Eskom's Leadership Collective for the further insights and the responses that you've provided to the questions. Colleagues, I think we will now take the last round of questions. Are there any follow-up questions, any further clarity-seeking questions to that which has been presented before us? We'll start with those who are in the room as per our usual protocol, and then Vanessa or Takalani will take us through any other questions online. Are there any hands in the room? Okay, if none, Takalani, Vanessa, online?
We do not have any questions from the online platform.
Okay, no, great. So colleagues, with that, I think we have come to the end of today's session. Once again, we wish to thank you very much for making time to honor our invitation on this Saturday noon to attend to this important media briefing. And with that, colleagues, you should have a great weekend ahead of yourselves, and thank you once again.
as indaba zawo.